Hi, this is Will the Werewolf again. I got a message off Louis asking me, there was a request on the YouTube thingy from a Rahul Sharma. He wanted to know more about the history of the werewolves and where they came from and why they're there, and I don't know, something like that. So I kind of covered it in one of my last interviews, but I'll go into a little bit more detail in this one, and I'm sure it's interesting to somebody. I hope it's interesting to Rahul. It's good that people are asking me questions now, because I don't really find these things that interesting, to be honest. But anyway, subscribe please and like it if you like it. And remember, there is a website where you can actually contact me and not him. That's www.werewolf.host. I'm gonna keep trying to communicate with you guys. Things are heating up a bit for me now, but Anyway, I'll crack on with this story. Okay. My positive wolf soul told me of the origins of my werewolf tribe. Now, as far as I know, this is the only group of werewolves in the world. They've been around for hundreds of years, so I would imagine they would have found out if there were any more. I've come across lots of people who believe they're werewolves through the website. I've met a were unicorn, which was crazy. It was interesting talking to these people, but I'm pretty sure that if other tribes of werewolves existed, then my tribe would know about them, my pack. I can't guarantee that though, so I'm really interested in meeting other shapeshifters and stories, if that's true. I found it very difficult to believe at first, but when you hear this story, it's difficult to believe. So and I would imagine my pack and my guys, they're pretty serious bastards, so they kind of know about this shit. I don't know. Anyway, this is where how my tribe came about, how my wolves came about in Surgut City, in Surgut in the Ural Mountains. Anyway, apparently there'd been one absolutely wild and horrific winter in some mountains somewhere in some fucking awful place in fucking Russia. I only found out it was the Ural Mountains after meeting up with my wife, the wife that I didn't know I had until I met one. There is a video about me meeting my wife that I didn't know I had. It's complicated and confusing. The Posset, that's my wolf soul. The Posset thought that it might be in Russia, as he could speak Russian pretty fluid, kind of. But he knew he'd left that place a long time before it had ever been mapped, or really, it wasn't called Russia or anything when he left. And to be honest, he didn't really like going into too much detail about it and stuff. I found out later why that was, but again, that's another interview. It's the interview about me talking to my grandfather werewolf, as it were. So we come to the real reason why we weirded out and wolves became werewolves. Apparently there had been a pack of wolves and a pack of people, both starving and both hunting each other, trying to survive through one of the harshest and coldest winters that they could ever remember. The state of affairs was not a good situation for the wolves or the people. So I suppose maybe as one pack they could survive. Both would survive. So one evening by the light of a full moon, that's where that full moon fucking bollocks come from. The local shaman had the village take some of the mystical, mentally melting magic mushrooms. In this area, they're found in pine forests, and they're called fly agaric mushrooms, and are quite poisonous for you if not prepared properly. They're the little red capped ones with the white spots that you see fairies and pixies that sat on in fairy tales. There might be a reason that they are synonymous with fairies and pixies due to the powerful hallucinogenic chemicals that they contain. Apparently, now this is apparently because I've never done them myself. I've done mushrooms. I've done bell-top mushrooms, but I've never done fly agarics. The only safe way that you can actually use these mushrooms is that they have to be processed through another organism. Now that seems kind of weird that they have to be processed by another creature, and I'm not talking about like a fucking rabbit or a deer having to crush them up and boil them or some shit like that. The fungus has to be processed through another animal's liver to be safe for us to take. Yes, the waste products of the creature would now hold the safe hallucinogen, and I'm not talking shit. The waste product that needs to be imbibed was piss. Yes, the animal's piss. Now, the shamans would obviously use the reindeer, which were kind of looked after by the Mansai people at that time. The Mansai people are those people in the mountains, some of the original Eurasians, and they would herd reindeer, follow those reindeer about, but the reindeer had been killed by the people, killed by the wolves, and actually a lot of them had, when a reindeer freezes to death, that's fucking cold. I mean, that is cold. If a reindeer dies of the cold, that's really serious. I mean, they've got hairy noses, keep them warm. The only animal that was available for the process of dealing with the fungus juice was actually a batshit crazy wolf that they trapped the night before. So it starts to make sense after a while, doesn't it? Yeah, so I know it sounds like utter bullshit, and you can believe it or not, but it's the story. They took this poor frantic wolf and forced mushrooms down its neck. The shamans somehow collected the wolf's piss. I don't know how they did that, and then they distributed it amongst the small band of villagers. Each one got a nice, warm, steaming cup of piss, and the shaman chap was hoping that the gods, through this strange process, would grant someone an idea of how to get through this shitty situation in which they found themselves. So they were all going to have a mighty trip together, and hopefully the gods, because apparently the gods do that, would then, hopefully give them a way to get through this horrific winter. It does sound a bit crazy, and it is a bit mental if you think about them drinking a trippy drug as part of wolf piss. It does not sound like it could have happened, but if you think about it, people do this, and who the fuck was the first person to drink piss anyways? I mean, reindeer piss. I mean, never mind the wolf piss. Who sat there and did they know that the reindeer had eaten the fungus when they first drunk it? I mean, did they actually know that it had eaten the fly agarics before they drank the piss, or did they just need a warm drink? I don't know. Did they just drink the piss to taste it? I mean, what the fuck? Were they because milk comes out of them, did they think piss would be good as well? Were they guessing that the piss would be hallucinogenic? It's just, for me, it's just a bit mental to think about who was the first person to sit there and think, I know, what I'll do is I'll drink the piss. Can you imagine him sat there? I know, we will feed this poisonous mushroom to the deer, and then we will drink their wee. How did that happen? So anyway, getting back to it, sorry, a bit of disbelief there. So the wolf urine gave everyone a shared hallucination where they melded minds Vulcan style with a local pack of wolves, which also were not doing too well in the inclement minus 54 degrees centigrade that it was at the time. The humans during this shared trip came to some deal where the wolves would give their spirits to the people, and having done so, then both packs would survive the winter. It would be a new strange combination, but it seemed to be something they could do. So by some shaman magic thing, now I don't know how they did it, I haven't got a clue. The wolves released their posits, their wolf souls, and then they could combine with humans and become a joint force for their survival. The deal seemed to, when I look at the deal, it seems to be a bit one-sided to me. I mean, the wolves all died, or it seemed they all died, and it seemed a bit shit for them. But that's the deal that they made. So I suppose if you're going to be a werewolf and a wolf, then you've got a bit more of a chance of surviving the winter. I don't know. The wolves were sacrificed in a very bloody, shamanic, proper religious rite. The creature's spirits chose... Each of the wolves' spirits chose a human host on that day. The human the wolf soul chose would then have to eat the heart of the wolf that they chose. I don't know why, it's magic in it. They ate it raw, and that's proper doing magical things, eating it raw, as humans find raw meat difficult to swallow. Once the wolves had been sacrificed, the humans helped themselves to the meat that was left over. There was a big feast, mostly of wolf, with a side order of wolf and wolf to follow. Well, they only really had wolf, didn't they? So maybe they had a cheese board at the end, who knows, but probably not. The chosen humans all lived extraordinary lives. Sadly, there were a lot fewer wolves than humans, so not all the people got a posit. Those that did get a soul then also ate the other members of the tribe quite soon after. Why not, I suppose? It seems a little unfair that the wolves sacrificed themselves, but the posit told me how they worked it out between them. I don't know how they worked it out. Did they all sit around a table, the wolf souls? And anyway, I'll carry on. The wolf spirit would become immortal, while the human would stay under the control of the posit. If the posit wanted to stay with the human, then the human would be timeless too. They would age to the point where the posit felt comfy, then be that age until the posit wanted out of the relationship. It may have been the age of the wolf in dog years or some shit, I have no idea. But I suppose with the combination of the wolf and the human then becoming the werewolf and stuff, it was pretty good doing, really. The posits were independent but able to bind with a human when needed, or if it was the full moon, when for some reason they had no choice but to bind with a human. They could be fully independent if they wished, but this would mean a pretty lonely life. And when I was actually over in the tribe, there were 3 free posits at the time, and they were kind of looking for human hosts, but yeah, they could live by themselves, but they would have to join with someone for the full moon, right? The posits tried to take on humans from the same tribe, but would have to be careful who they chose. The posits would then be passed on from human to human for all time. Not a bad deal when you think about it in those terms. So happily the wolves and the humans worked it out, and the human band survived and became the first tribe of werewolves that ever existed. It's a cool story. Now, I don't know how true it is, but it sounds that it could have happened, and Fen, my posit, sat here looking at me nodding, and he's not really happy about me telling his story, but maybe it could be science, it could be magic, or it could literally be bollocks, I've no idea. The posits could always move on and find a fresh person that had some relation to these first members of the tribe when they wanted. I suppose we would talk about something related to them finding the DNA of their ancestors these days, something like that. The posit would also find the best human mind that would match their own. This would mean that the relationship would be more likely to be successful. The posit, once bound to a human, could leave them if they wanted to, so they would often bounce around from person to person until they found a particular individual they liked, and someone who could mentally deal with the idea that they had just been linked to a spirit wolf and become a werewolf. Because a lot of people can't deal with that, as you can imagine. As you can probably guess, not many people can, mentally get away with that. Most people think they're having massive psychotic episodes. That's basically why posits tend to choose youngsters and grow up with them. If the posit wanted to leave, they could, and they would. They weren't afraid of leaving a human because they knew they could move on. And after they left the human would often go mad, mental, break down, and age very quickly and then die. I don't get it either. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's kind of cool in a way, isn't it? As you can probably guess, not many... Oh, sorry, I'm going to move on. My posit, Fen, who's sat here looking at me now, is a dark one. Very much like myself. He enjoys the simple, cruel pleasures of life. We both dislike the society that surrounds us, but we're not all like that. Not all werewolves are like that. There are some happy, flappy, camping werewolves that like humans. I don't get it myself, but they get quite annoyed with me. I mean, the ones in Suga, especially in the village that originally come from, love the local community of humans. In fact, if you kill a local human, they get really pissed off at you. It's ridiculous. They kind of know them by name and everything. I don't get it either. There's only, right, I counted up, and it's my best guess because no one actually really knows, but I think there's only 74 werewolf souls. And as I say, there were 3 that I knew that weren't bound, and I knew that there was a number that weren't in Surgut when I was there. but it wasn't very many. It was like only 4 or 5, and I'm one of them. So yeah, that's kind of how werewolves came about. I don't have much more information than that. It's not about being bitten or being spells or anything like that I know of. I mean, I can maybe believe, because if it did happen, I don't see why it can't happen again. Okay, so I'm not going to dismiss anybody from their belief if that's what they are. And if you're a werewolf and you'd like to talk to me about it and prove it to me, I would love that, because I don't really have anybody at the moment who is similar to me, because I'm not really sort of happy with, well, my people aren't really happy with me at the moment, as you can imagine. So yeah, that's how werewolves came about from my point of view. For those of you that want to be a werewolf, it's not that easy. Lots of people have got in contact with me and said, make me a werewolf. I can't make people a werewolf. You have to be chosen to be a werewolf. You have to have a specific werewolf soul that's going to come to you and decide to take you on. It's not like easy at all. I can't just bite you or do any of the nonsense you see in the movies, because the world would be full of fucking werewolves, and we don't do that. Also, someone asked about vampires. Now, we don't really have a lot to do with each other. We know the vampire couple exists. I've met two vampires in my life that I know of. You can only smell them; they fucking stink awful, man. But yet again, when I say there's a lot of them, I know there's not like more than 4,000 or 5,000 in the world. And again, they don't make people into vampires very often. And a lot of the vampires are from a genetic backstock. But there's lots of weird things in the world, and when you hear vampires and werewolves, it's the traditional vampires and werewolves, fucking underworld movies and all that bollocks. There's lots of strange creatures out there. Anyway, that's the history of the werewolves. I've overtalked it. If you have any questions, www.werewolf.host to speak to me, myself, Will. If you want to ask Louis any questions, you can get him on this YouTube channel thing. If you could subscribe and like it, this isn't monetized. Literally, I want this information to get out there. Louis doesn't like this YouTube channel at all. He thinks it's stupid. He just really wants to go down the documentary path, but I kind of insisted, and when I insist on something, it's very difficult to say no to me. So I hope that helps. For the person who sent us the question, Rahul. Rahul, I can't make you into a werewolf, mate. I don't have the powers, and we don't fight with vampires if we can at all help it, because it just ends up in a mess, and we can kind of stay away from each other. They do their own thing, to be honest. It's not that sexy and exciting battles that go on in Underworld or anything like that. If I see a vampire, I tend to stay away from the bastard. Yeah, and do you know what he does? He tends to stay away from me too. Yeah, so I know a bit of information about the vampires. I've talked about the conspiracy theories. It's not a conspiracy theory. They did invent COVID, and they will continue to try and thin out the herd, as it were. But yeah, I hope that helps, Rahul. And if it doesn't, then send a question to me at the website, please, because Louis knows sweet FA, to be honest. Thank you very much. Love you lots. Werewolf over and out.